Ever feel like debt collectors, they have like superpowers or something?
Superpowers.
Yeah, like they can haunt your phone, know where you work, even like magically show up at your doorstep.
Yeah. Sadly, it's not superpower, just, incredibly aggressive tactics.
Right.
And it's more common in India, than you might think.
Yeah, that's true. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. Loan recovery in India. We've got reports, regulations, you name it. By the end of this, you'll be a pro at spotting the bad behavior, the stuff that shouldn't be happening.
And more importantly, how to shut it down.
Exactly.
Because single debt, they've been, in this financial advice game for over 40 years.
Wow.
And they're saying this is still a huge problem. 40 years.
Okay, well, that's not reassuring, but it definitely proves this deep dive is needed.
Right.
So paint us a picture. What kind of harassment are we talking about here?
So imagine this. You're getting calls at 3 a.m. Not just one. A barrage. Your boss gets these anonymous tips about your finances. Family members are getting pressured to pay up.
Hold on. They can't contact your family about your debt. Oh, right. That can't be right.
They cannot. That's a huge violation of the RBI's Code of Conduct for Recovery Agents. Your debt is your business.
Okay, RBI, that's the Reserve Bank of India, right? So they're like the referees in all of this.
Exactly. And they've got a whole rule book, this Code of Conduct, to keep things from, going off the rails.
Okay, so what can they do then? I mean, obviously they're trying to get their money back.
Of course. But there's a right way and a very wrong way to go about it. This code, it's all about making sure recovery agents stay in their lane. No more of these intimidation tactics.
So, what's considered crossing the line? What are we talking about here?
Think of it this way. Would you feel safe if someone just showed up at your house unannounced, demanding money, refusing to leave?
No way. That just screams sketchy.
Exactly. The RBI says recovery agents, they have to clearly identify themselves, tell you who they're representing, and they can't use any form of intimidation. You have the right to know exactly who you're dealing with.
Okay, so no more hiding behind vague threats or anonymous calls. That actually makes me feel a bit better, knowing there are at least some rules in place.
And there's more. The RBI, it also requires these agents to go through training.
Oh, really?
You wouldn't want someone giving you financial advice without knowing the rules, right?
Yeah, that's I don't know, getting legal advice from someone who's only ever watched courtroom dramas.
Exactly. These training programs, they cover everything from ethical collection practices to understanding your rights as a borrower. It's about ensuring they're not just enforcers, but informed professionals.
So they can't just hire anyone off the street to do this. There's actual accountability.
Absolutely, yeah. The banks and financial institutions, they are responsible for their recovery agents. If an agent breaks the rules, the institution faces the music, penalties, investigations, the whole shebang. It's in their best interest to make sure things are done by the book.
Okay, that is a relief, honestly. But let's be real for a second. Rules are only as good as their enforcement, right? So how do you actually know when an agent is crossing the line? What are the red flags to look out for?
That's the million-dollar question, right? It's all about recognizing those red flags. And trust me, they're usually pretty bright red.
Okay, so hit us with some examples. What are some surefire signs that things are about to get messy?
Number one, any kind of threat.
Okay.
And not just physical violence, but threats to your reputation, your job, anything that makes you feel unsafe, really. Remember, their job is to collect a debt, not to make threats.
So if they're saying things like, we know where you work, or this will ruin your credit score, that's a no-go.
Huge red flag. It's a way of leveraging fear, and it's totally unacceptable. Same goes for contacting your family, friends, employers, any of that. The RBI is crystal clear. Communication about your debt should only be with you.
Yeah, that just makes sense. What about those pressure tactics you mentioned before? How far is too far when it comes to that?
Good question. Think of it this way. They can't force you into anything you're not legally obligated to do.
Yeah.
They can't force you to sell your belongings, borrow more money, or empty your bank account to pay them back immediately.
So if they're demanding you take out another loan to pay off this one, that's a major warning sign.
Absolutely, especially if it's a loan from some, shady, unregulated lender. That's jumping from the frying pan into the fire.
Yikes. Yeah, definitely want to avoid that.
Yeah.
Okay, what about those late night calls? Where's the line between just being persistent and straight up harassment?
The RBI has guidelines for this too.
Oh, really?
They can contact you during, reasonable hours, but they can't be calling you at 2 a.m. every night, making it impossible to sleep, have a normal life, right?
Yeah, that's just like common decency at that point. Okay, so let's say we're in the thick of it now. We've spotted the red flags, the pressure's on. What do we do? What are our options here?
First things first, don't panic.
Easier said than done sometimes?
I know, but knowledge is power. Now that you know your rights, you're in a much stronger position than you think.
Right, but what are our moves? Do we lawyer up, call the RBI hotline?
You've got options, and they don't always have to involve lawyers and courts.
Okay, good.
Although those are on the table if you need them, a good first step is often a formal complaint directly to the lender.
You mean like, "Dear bank, your recovery ninjas are out of control."
Something like that, but
Yeah.
maybe with a little less colorful language. But seriously, a well-written complaint outlining the harassment, specific dates, times, the whole 9 yards, it can be surprisingly effective.
Well,
Remember, banks and financial institutions, they have a reputation to uphold.
so they don't want to be known for employing like the debt collector from hell.
Exactly. It's bad for business. And often, a strongly worded letter, it'll prompt them to rein in their agents or even just assign a new one to your case. But if that doesn't work, that's when you start to think about escalating things.
Okay, so escalation time. What's next on the list?
Remember that RBI rulebook we talked about earlier? It's not just for show. You can and should file a complaint with the RBI if you're facing harassment, especially if it violates their code of conduct.
So the RBI actually wants to hear from people who are being targeted by these tactics. They're actually interested.
Absolutely. They have a whole system in place for handling these complaints. You can file online, by mail, even in person at one of their offices. It's about holding those financial institutions accountable, making sure they're playing by the rules.
Well, that's good to know. That's reassuring. But what if, like, things have gone beyond annoying calls and it's something more serious? We're talking actual threats, feeling unsafe, that sort of thing.
If it's a matter of your safety or you're facing, criminal intimidation, you shouldn't hesitate to file a police complaint.
So forget the RBI rulebook. Time to bring in the actual law.
Exactly. The police, they will investigate and take appropriate action. This isn't just about debt collection anymore. It's about your well-being.
Right. No amount of money is worth feeling unsafe.
Yeah.
But aside from the RBI and the police, are there any other avenues for, recourse, for getting help?
Absolutely. Remember the Consumer Protection Act we mentioned?
Yeah.
That's your secret weapon. You can file a complaint with the consumer court if you believe your rights have been violated.
So we're talking full-on legal action here.
It can be a really powerful tool, especially in cases where the harassment is severe or, it's ongoing. Consumer courts are designed to be a little bit more accessible than traditional courts, and they often deal with, these sorts of financial disputes.
Okay. That's good to know. But, legal action, consumer court, all of that, it sounds a little intimidating, not to mention potentially expensive.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we can do to sort of protect ourselves, maybe even before things escalate to that level?
There is, and it's something so simple. Documentation. Think of it like, you're building a case file.
Okay.
Every phone call, every message, every interaction with a recovery agent, you write it down.
Gotcha.
The date, the time, who said what.
So even if it seems, I don't know, like a minor thing at the time, like just a rude comment, I should jot it down.
Exactly. It's all about having that paper trail. That way, if things do escalate, you've got the evidence to back up your claims.
Right, because their word against yours, that's not going to hold up so well in court.
Exactly. And keep copies of everything, too. Letters, emails, even voice recordings if your local laws allow it. This documentation can be crucial if you ever need to file that complaint with the lender, the RBI, even the police.
Okay, so in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Stay calm, know the rules, document everything. This is all starting to sound a lot less intimidating than it did when we first started.
See? That's what I like to hear, because the truth is you're not powerless in this situation. And frankly, the more people who know their rights and stand up for themselves, the less effective these shady tactics are going to be.
Right, because knowledge is power, especially when it comes to something as important as, our financial well-being.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, there you have it, the lowdown on loan recovery in India. You heard it here first, folks.
Mm-hmm.
You have rights, you have options, and you have the power to protect yourself from harassment. Until next time, stay informed, stay vigilant, and remember, knowledge is your best defense.